So, what do you get when a WNBA's most hyped young star declines her assigned all-star coach on live television, calls for a swap, and turns the league's most wholesome event into strategic warfare? You get a moment so unhinged, so iconic, it might just change the way all-star games are run forever. And at the center of it all, Caitlin Clark. Yes, that Caitlin Clark. And yes, she really just traded out Cheryl Reeves, the veteran coach of Team USA, no less, like she was making a fantasy league move. And the woman stepping into the chaos? Liberty head coach Sandy Brondello, a familiar face with championship pedigree. And, as it turns out, deep ties to another key player in this wild saga, Sabrina Ionescu. Let's talk about it, because this wasn't just some fun twist during a pre-game segment. This was calculated. This was personal. And if you look close enough, it was history in the making. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. All-Star Weekend is usually the one time the WNBA loosens its ponytail. The vibe is casual. Laughs, trick plays, custom kicks. It's an exhibition, no real beef, no real stakes, just vibes. So when Caitlin Clark and Nafiza Collier were announced as captains, a reflection of their massive fan support, everyone expected a playful draft. You know, I'll take my teammate, you take your college roommate, maybe even a light roast or two. But when it came time to reveal the coaches, that's where the script flipped. Instead of nodding politely and accepting Cheryl Reeves, the longtime head coach of the Minnesota Lynx and head of Team USA, Clark made a choice no one saw coming. She asked for a coach swap, live, on, air. She didn't mince words. She didn't deflect. She said it straight. I think we'd be better served with a different voice on the bench. Boom. Cheryl Reeves? Benched. Sandy Brondello? Subbed in. And just like that, the first ever coach trade in WNBA All-Star history became a reality. We weren't watching an All-Star game. We were watching a power shift. Now, if you've been following WNBA drama, and if you're here, let's be real you have, then you already know this wasn't random. Caitlin Clark and Cheryl Reeves' relationship has been, let's call it frosty. The Olympic snub still looms large in the public consciousness. Clark, who leads the league in assists and sits among the top scorers, was notably left off the 2024 Paris roster. And who made that call? Cheryl Reeves. At the time, Reeves cited team fit and continuity. But fans, and apparently Clark, saw it as personal. Combine that with Reeves' thinly veiled public comments about players needing to earn their stripes, and you've got a recipe for tension that's been simmering for months. This wasn't just a coach trade. This was a response. A clapback with a clipboard. And it gets even better. Because Clark didn't just choose any coach. She chose Sandy Brondello, the woman who coached the New York Liberty to a dominant season, and who just so happens to have a very close working relationship with Liberty star Sabrina Ionescu. When the trade was announced, cameras immediately cut to Sabrina. The smile said it all. The look, that confident, slightly sarcastic grin, only reserved for someone who knows they're about to light it up. Then came the line, "You can't escape me." And she meant it. It was cheeky, sure, but also revealed just how tight the bond between certain players and coaches really are in this league. Ionescu has flourished under Brondello's system, and her comfort level with that coaching style gave Clark's team a strategic edge from the jump. Let's be real. In exhibition games where effort fluctuates and plays are loose, having a coach who knows how to connect with players on the fly matters. Clark's decision wasn't just about pettiness. It was about vibe alignment, chemistry, and sending a message. This is a new era. And Clark? She's not asking for permission anymore. It didn't take long for Twitter, sorry, X, to explode. Half of basketball Twitter was like, YSSS player empowerment queen. And the other half was clutching pearls, asking, but what about respect for the veterans? Even retired legends weighed in. Some applauded Clark's guts. Others questioned if this was the right time and place. And Cheryl Reeves? She stayed classy, saying she was there for the game, not the drama. But let's not act like this didn't sting. This is a coach with multiple championships and the Olympic keys. To be publicly traded out by a second-year player? That's ego-bruising stuff, even if you smile through it. Still, Brondello took in stride, calling it an honor and a fun challenge. And the WNBA? They leaned in, posting highlight reels with captions like, "Trade deadline who?" and "Coaches. They're just like us." First off, let's talk All-Star format. Up until now, the WNBA All-Star game has played it safe. Captains, fan votes, done and done. But this moment, this chaotic brilliance, just cracked the door open for more creativity. Imagine player-selected coaching staffs in the future. Imagine real-time trades, wild-card selections, mid-game substitutions voted by fans. The All-Star game doesn't have to be boring. And Clark just proved that shaking things up works. More importantly, this signals a cultural shift. We're seeing the rise of players who aren't content just to show up and smile. They want to say, in their rosters, in their coaches, in how the game is framed and who's telling the story. It's not about disrespect. It's about redefining roles. Clark's decision shows that players now see themselves as stakeholders in league decisions, not just jerseys on a roster. Act 6, the performance that backed it all up. Of course, this wouldn't mean anything if Clark didn't deliver, but she did. From no-look dimes to logo threes, Clark put on a masterclass. Sabrina fed off the energy too, torching offenders and pulling up with her usual swagger. The team looked loose but deadly, like they were having fun, but still hunting buckets. Meanwhile, Brondello coached like she'd been with the group all season. The rotations were clean. Everyone ate. It was a perfect storm of chemistry and showmanship. And Cheryl Reeves, to her credit, her squad came to play. But the storyline had already shifted. The cameras weren't following the scoreboard. They were following the narrative. And that narrative belonged to Clark. This wasn't just a footnote in All-Star history. This was a legacy moment. Clark didn't just shoot threes. She took a swing at the system. And while some might call it disrespectful, others, including a growing base of fans and players, see it as necessary evolution. The WNBA is growing, fast, and growth comes with friction, with risk, with players pushing the boundaries of how it's always been done. So was Clark's coach trade petty? Maybe. Strategic? Definitely. Iconic? Without a doubt. And as for Sabrina's reaction, you can't escape me. It's already T-shirt material. A rallying cry for a league entering its boldest, most unfiltered era yet. This All-Star game wasn't about trophies. It was about territory. And Caitlin Clark? She just claimed hers. The aftershock, a league in reflection. When Caitlin Clark made history by swapping Cheryl Reeves for Sandy Brondello, she didn't just spark a Twitter debate. She put the entire league under a microscope. Every analyst, fan, and player suddenly had a take. Not just on the trade, but on what it meant for the league's culture, power dynamics, and future. Inside locker rooms and behind closed doors, conversations were shifting. Veteran players were quietly murmuring about respect and hierarchy. Younger athletes? They were taking notes, watching what it looked like to challenge a legacy coach and win. Front office executives began asking bigger questions. How much voice should players really have? What happens if this kind of move becomes the norm? Could the WNBA evolve into a place where players don't just pick their teams, but their leaders? Suddenly, this wasn't about a single moment. It was a movement. Clark's calculated rebellion. Let's not gloss over how carefully constructed this moment actually was. Caitlin Clark may look like your All-American basketball sweetheart. Clean-cut, calm under pressure, a natural leader. But don't be fooled by the Midwestern politeness. Behind that exterior is a sharp mind, a competitive streak, and a memory like a steel trap. When Cheryl Reeves left Clark off the Olympic roster, it wasn't just a professional slight. It became part of a broader narrative. That Clark still had dues to pay. That she was too popular too fast. That she needed humbling. So when the All-Star opportunity came, Clark didn't forget. She saw a chance not just to clap back, but to flip the entire power structure. By publicly replacing Reeves, she reframed the Olympic snub not as a sign of unworthiness, but a misjudgment on Reeves' part. It wasn't petty. It was poetic. Sandy Brondello, the right coach, right time. If Reeves represented the old guard, Sandy Brondello was the bridge to the future. Respected but not rigid. Strategic but player first. Brondello has built her reputation on communication and adaptability. Two traits that Clark clearly values. Clark didn't just want a coach she liked. She wanted someone who matched her tempo. Someone who would listen. Who would build with her, not above her. And as soon as Brondello stepped in, the vibes shifted. The team played freer, faster. Practices had laughter and competitiveness. Game strategy became collaborative. Suddenly, it wasn't just Clark's all-star team. It was her vision. Cheryl Reeves' tightrope walk. Reeves, for a part, had a tightrope to walk. She's a legend. Her resume speaks for itself. Multiple WNBA titles, decades of coaching experience, and the crown jewel of national team leadership. But legacy is a tricky thing. If you don't adapt, it starts to feel like dead weight. Reeves tried to play it cool after the swap, said all the right things, smiled through it. But make no mistake, this stung. Because beneath all the Olympic gold and regular season wins, there's pride, there's identity. And being swapped out by a 23-year-old, that cuts deep. Now the question isn't just what happened at All-Star. It's what happens the next time Clark and Reeves cross paths. At a post-game handshake, on the Olympic Committee, during a playoff matchup. Tensions like these don't just vanish. They marinate. Sabrina Ionescu's power position. While the Clark-Reeves feud dominated headlines, don't overlook the other player whose stock quietly soared. Sabrina Ionescu. When Clark brought Brondello in, it immediately strengthened Ionescu's position, not just within the All-Star team, but league-wide. Her quote, "You can't escape me," wasn't just a cute punchline. It was a subtle flex. She's showing the world that relationships matter, that loyalty matters, that being a connector, someone who bridges teammates, coaches, and moments, is a superpower in itself. This moment reminded everyone why Ionescu is more than just a sharpshooter or stat monster. She's a cultural anchor, a leader by presence as much as by play. And in this league, where narratives shape legacies, that's currency. The fans react, divided but engaged. Let's be honest, fans were living for the drama. Some hailed Clark's decision as the ultimate boss move. Others found it disrespectful. But regardless of where people landed, everyone was talking. The coach trade trended across social platforms. Memes exploded. Debate shows led with it. Even sports fans who hadn't watched a WNBA game in years suddenly had opinions. Should players be able to trade coaches? Is Reeves outdated? Is Clark rewriting how young athletes handle leadership? The noise was deafening. But for the WNBA, that's gold. Because this league thrives not just on skill, but on storylines. And Caitlin Clark had just handed them one of the most compelling story arcs in years. League implications. What changes now? Make no mistake, this won't be a one-off. If the league is smart, and they are, they'll use this moment as a blueprint. Imagine future all-star events where captains draft entire staffs. Not just players, but assistant coaches, trainers, even broadcasters. Imagine wildcard coach challenges, where a player can sub in a guest mentor for one quarter, or interactive fan votes mid-game to make strategic swaps. The possibilities are endless, and Clark just kicked the door open. But there's a deeper ripple effect, too. One that will influence team dynamics outside the All-Star game. Because when one player makes a bold, disruptive move, and it works, others start to take notes. This is a Caitlin Clark effect, redefining what leadership looks like for a new generation. Veteran response, a culture check? Not everyone in the league was thrilled. Quiet murmurs from seasoned players hinted at discomfort. There's a way we do things. One unnamed vet reportedly said after the trade. This wasn't it. To some, Clark's move felt like skipping steps. Like rewriting rules without first learning them. Like pulling rank before earning rank. It's a generational divide. One that's played out in other leagues, too. The NBA saw it when young stars like Luka and Ja started calling their own shots. The NFL saw it with Patrick Mahomes. Now it's the WNBA's turn. And it's not about disrespect. It's about transition. Veterans have built this league. Now, Young stars like Clark are reshaping it. And the friction between those realities? That's where the real growth happens. Sandy Brondello's masterclass. Let's give flowers where they're due. Sandy Brondello handled this chaos flawlessly. She stepped into storm with poise, built trust fast, and turned what could have been a messy experiment into a well-oiled all-star machine. Her ability to navigate player egos, conflicting narratives, and high expectations speaks volumes. In a league where coaching changes are constant and locker rooms are complex, Brondello just reminded everyone why she's still one of the most respected minds in basketball. And don't be surprised that this little all-star cameo boosts her stock even more. Executive teams were watching. Future free agents were watching. And Brondello proved she can thrive anywhere, anytime, with anyone. The game itself, fireworks and fundamentals. When the ball tipped off, the drama didn't end. It translated into one of the most entertaining all-star games in years. Clark dropped dimes. Ionescu hit logo threes. Brondello's squad ran smooth sets while laughing on the sidelines. Meanwhile, Reeves' team brought fire, trying to prove a point. It felt like real basketball with exhibition flair. The power shift. When the rookie holds the remote, what we're witnessing here isn't just a quirky all-star twist. It's a fundamental shift in league dynamics. Traditionally, all-star games have been flashy exhibitions, low stakes, high glamour. But when Caitlin Clark refused to accept Cheryl Reeves as her coach, it wasn't just about personality. It was about power. It was about optics. It was about rewriting the rules in real time. In any other era, a second-year player wouldn't dare push back on a decorated coach like Reeves, especially not in public. But Clark isn't any other player. She's a walking TV ratings magnet, the face of Nike deals, and the reason half the country even knows there's a WNBA All-Star game happening. And now, she's also the face of player autonomy. This wasn't a petty feud. This was Clark putting the league on notice. You can't ice me out of the Olympics, drag me in pressers, and expect me to smile through it. Her trade the coach moment was the equivalent of flipping the chessboard and building a new one from scratch. Calculated chaos, the brilliance behind the boldness. Let's talk about the timing here, because Caitlin didn't just improvise this. It's not lost on anyone that her public coach trade came just weeks after Cheryl Reeves publicly left her off-Team USA's Olympic roster, opting for what she called chemistry and experience over the most watched, most Googled, most go-atified rookie in league history. So when Clark was handed the captain's clipboard and the draft privileges, she made her move. No fanfare. No rant. Just, I'm not trading any players. I'm trading the coach. What looked like a spicy soundbite. That was chess. Clark controlled the narrative. She knew media would explode. She knew the league wouldn't find her. She knew fans would rally. And most importantly, she knew Cheryl Reeves couldn't retaliate. Why? Because Clark didn't break any rules. She just broke tradition. Sabrina's reaction wasn't just a joke. It was a warning. When Sabrina Ionescu smirked and dropped that now iconic, "You can't escape me," the WNBA got me moment. But let's not act like it was just banter. That line was soaked in years of locker room politics, media pressure, and unspoken alliances. Sabrina has long been one of the league's golden girls, a media darling, a fierce competitor, and someone who's endured her own share of scrutiny. But her reunion with Sandy Brondello wasn't just a comfort. It was leverage. She knows how this league works. She knows what it means to have a coach you can trust. By welcoming Sandy back with a smile and a mic drop quip, Sabrina threw subtle shade at the system, too. She was aligned with Clark, yes, but more than that, she was aligned to the idea of agency, of saying, we pick our futures, not you. Cheryl Reeves' silence is deafening. Let's not gloss over this. Cheryl Reeves has said nothing about being publicly traded out of an all-star coaching slot. Not even a passive-aggressive quote. Not even a wishing them well. For a coach as outspoken and media-savvy as Reeves, this is a choice, a calculated silence. Why? Because she knows there's no good way to spin it. If she claps back, it confirms a rift. If she brushes it off, it looks like she's dodging. If she claims it's all fun and games, she undermines her own authority. Reeves is stuck, and Clark put her there. This is what happens when an old guard leader underestimates a new-gen phenom with both the fan base and the finesse to flip the narrative. Reeves thought she could ice Clark out of the Olympics without fallout. She was wrong. Now she's a coach who got benched in front of millions by a rookie. The league is quietly scrambling. While fans celebrate and debate, you can bet WNBA execs are behind the scenes trying to make sure this never happens again. On paper, there's no rule against trading a coach in an all-star setting. But after this chaos, don't be surprised if next year's draft comes with some new fine print. Something vague like coaching designation subject to league approval. Because the truth is, this was thrilling, but it was also dangerous. If players can reject coaches in public, what's next? Refusing media duties? Boycotting team meetings? The league needs structure. And structure means controlling the spectacle. But here's the catch. The fans loved it. You can't regulate chaos without killing what made it fun. This was about more than just one snub. Caitlin Clark wasn't just pushing back on Cheryl Reeves. She was pushing back on the whole idea that veterans get to gatekeep the league. From the second she entered the WNBA, Clark has been met with resistance. Not just tough defense, but media jabs, dismissive interviews, and players who clearly don't want her stealing their spotlight. Whether it's jealousy, race dynamics, or old-school resentment, the vibe has been clear. Earn your stripes before you speak. But Clark's done being polite. She is the moment, and she knows it. This coach swap was her saying, I'm not just here to shoot, I'm here to lead. And leadership sometimes means making a mess. How this changes the All-Star game forever. Let's be real. The WNBA All-Star game hasn't always drawn headlines. It's flashy, sure, but rarely historic. Until now, Caitlin Clark just rebranded the whole thing. The coach trade, the draft strategy, the shade, it turned a one-night exhibition into a week-long cultural event. Suddenly, the All-Star game has stakes. Drama, plot, and you can bet the league is going to ride that wave. Expect more player-driven drafts. Expect more microphone moments. Expect chaos, but curated chaos. Because like it or not, Caitlin Clark just made the All-Star game matter. Years from now, when we talk about the moment women's basketball shifted, it won't just be about the NCAA championship or Clark's Olympic snub. It'll be this. The moment a young player, fresh off a rookie season, walked into an all-star spotlight and said, we're not doing this your way anymore. The moment a coach, respected, established, untouchable, got benched by the very player she thought she could sideline. The moment the WNBA became a little less traditional, a little more unpredictable, and a lot more interesting. Whether you're Team Clark or Team Reeves, there's no denying the impact. This wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't immaturity. It was strategy, spectacle, and a message. Caitlin Clark doesn't just play the game. She changes it. So the question now is, who's next? Who's the next player to challenge the status quo? The next coach to take a risk? The next All-Star game to rewrite the script? Because if this is the new WNBA era, we're all watching. And no one's escaping Caitlin Clark.